Bienvenue sur Métal Maniaques, un balado d'horreur Québec où je, sous-signé Kristof G, m'entretiens avec des métalleux tripeux d'horreur. Épisode 21, Métal Maniaques, mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue sur ce nouvel épisode de ce petit show. Salut Alex, comment ça va?
Salut Kristof, je vais très bien, et toi?
Super, je suis en pleine forme. Là, on est rendu qu'il fait frette, probablement.
Oui, il fait frette.
Évidemment, on enregistre toujours un petit peu avant que ça sorte, mais...
Il a commencé à faire froid déjà, là.
Oui, effectivement.
Oui,
c'est ça. Puis là, ben, c'est l'épisode du 13 décembre. Hein? C'est-tu un vendredi 13? Je me rappelle pas. Hein? T'en rappelles-tu?
Non. Je dis non. Non, je m'en rappelle pas. Je peux pas te confirmer comme ça. Non.
Ben non, je dis n'importe quoi. Mais c'est toujours vendredi 13 dans notre cœur anyway, parce que on est comme ça. Jason Voorhees, puis tous ses amis. Mais on n'est pas là pour parler de ça parce que ce soir, ou aujourd'hui, ce matin, dépendamment de l'heure que vous écoutez ce show, ben on a deux beaux invités à vous présenter. Deux belles conversations que j'ai pu avoir avec deux gars avec qui le courant a passé super vite, deux gars super fins, deux gars qui sont connectés ensemble avec un projet, qui se sont jamais rencontrés, mais qui ont un peu échangé ou eu des commentaires un de l'autre. Puis, je vais nommer le plus connu des deux, Frank Bello, bassiste d'Anthrax. Anthrax, je l'ai déjà dit sur le show, Anthrax est mon band thrash préféré. Moi, j'aime Anthrax depuis tellement longtemps. Frank Bello, c'est le bassiste. Il a été aussi un peu bassiste dans le band Helmet. On en a parlé un petit peu brièvement dans l'entrevue. Il y a aussi un autre projet avec un autre bassiste, l'ex-bassiste de Megadeth, Dave Ellefson, qui s'appelle Altitudes and Attitudes. Ils ont sorti un album EP. Il vient de sortir il y a quelques mois, au moment de l'apparition de l'épisode, un EP solo. Frank Bello solo, Then I'm Gone, un petit EP qui vient de sortir. Je dirais que j'ai écouté quelques chansons. C'est un peu un genre de métal alternatif, un peu comme le Anthrax des années 90. C'est assez le fun. Puis Frank Bello, il fait beaucoup de back vocal avec Anthrax. On n'est pas dépaysé. Allez écouter ça. C'est disponible sur toutes les plateformes. Il a sorti ça en vinyle aussi. Donc, bien plaisant, puis vraiment, c'est une très, très belle conversation que j'ai eue avec Frank Bello. Un gars super simple, terre à terre, enthousiaste. Tu sais, moi, j'aime ça, les gens qui s'exclament. On a beaucoup ri. En tout cas, vraiment gros fun. Puis, je trouvais que ça faisait beaucoup de sens d'inviter Andy Bélanger sur le show, qui est un gars de Toronto qui reste à Montréal maintenant, un bédéiste. Il travaille depuis super longtemps. Je ne vais pas énumérer toutes les BD sur lesquelles il a travaillé parce que je l'ai fait dans la conversation que j'ai eue avec lui. Mais il a travaillé sur la BD Among the Living qui est sortie l'an dernier. Donc, il a illustré l'histoire que Frank Bello a écrite. Donc, je trouvais que c'était vraiment une belle opportunité d'avoir ces deux invités-là, d'avoir deux belles rencontres avec des vrais passionnés. Puis, on a parlé de plein de trucs, de ses projets personnels, on a parlé de musique. Puis, Alex, il y a comme un album dont Andy a discuté, qui a inspiré Alex pour sa chronique d'aujourd'hui.
Oui, absolument. En fait, à la question... vous allez l'entendre dans l'entrevue de toute façon, mais la question, c'est quoi ton entrée ou ton initiation dans le métal? Andy Bélanger a répondu tout de suite Metallica and Justice for All. Et là, quand il a dit ça, je me suis dit, en fait, c'est ma réponse aussi, parce que même si j'avais déjà un pied dans la musique punk puis hardcore, parce que j'avais un oncle qui était un peu comme mon grand frère qui écoutait cette musique-là, fait que je découvrais un peu ces bandes-là à travers lui, il m'avait un peu initié à cet univers-là.
Mais c'était moins métal. OK.
C'était pas métal, mais j'étais déjà. Puis petit cul, il y avait Kiss, Queen qui était, c'était pas métal, mais quand même des
Ça rockait quand
hard
même.
rock, ça rockait. Il y avait la guitare électrique. Puis dans ces eaux-là, quand Metallica est sorti, je connaissais un petit peu, mais pas vraiment. Puis j'avais entendu du Judas Priest, j'avais entendu,
Sûrement du hair metal un peu.
du hair
Motley
metal,
Crue.
White Guns N' Roses, puis Def Leppard, mettons. Tu sais, en 5e année, là, on tripait
Ouais.
pas mal sur Def Leppard.
Alors, moi, je
Mais
tripais sur Def Leppard solide. Puis Metallica, Injustice, à l'époque, c'était trop élevé pour moi. C'était trop pour moi.
c'est ça. Quand Injustice for All est arrivé, moi, j'étais en 6e année. Donc, je commençais la 6e année parce que l'album est sorti, je pense que c'était en septembre 1988. Donc, c'est ça. Moi, j'étais en 6e année. J'avais un ami, en fait, je fréquentais une nouvelle école. J'avais un ami qui m'avait fait découvrir cet album-là. Je venais d'arriver dans cette école-là. Donc, ça avait cliqué avec un gars dans la classe qui m'avait invité chez eux. Puis là, il m'avait fait écouter la cassette.
Puis à l'époque, ça
comme ça que j'ai
cartonnait là, au combat des clips à Musique Plus. Il y avait Pour Some Sugar on Me de Def Leppard, puis il y avait One.
Ouais, mais plus tard, parce que la vidéo est sortie plus tard que l'album. Là.
Ah ouais, hein?
Oui, l'album, quand il est sorti, il n'y avait pas encore le clip, parce que le single One est sorti en 89.
OK.
Ouais.
Ah ouais, ça a pris autant de temps, OK.
Ça a pris un petit bout de temps, parce que, justement, Metallica voulait pas faire de clip. Hein. Ils n'en avaient pas fait pour aucun des albums.
Jamais fait.
Bref, pourquoi j'ai choisi... Puis là, je sais qu'il y a plein de monde qui connaissent Injustice for All, puis les métalleux qui nous suivent doivent tous l'avoir entendu, mais je trouvais que c'était un peu le moment de rendre, sans faire de mauvais jeu de mots, justice à l'album Injustice for All, parce que depuis quelques années sur les internets, puis tout ça, Injustice for All est synonyme de il n'y a pas de bass, ça serait quoi Metallica, l'album Injustice for All avec la bass, puis bon. On connaît l'histoire, Jason Newsted est arrivé un petit peu avant, donc en 1986, il y avait Master of Puppets, album qui a été d'ailleurs redécouvert là, par plein de gens qui ont écouté Stranger Things, fait qu'il y a toute une nouvelle génération qui vient d'être initiée à Metallica avec la chanson et l'album Master of Puppets.
C'est quand même le fun, une parenthèse. Moi, je mets Chaume dans l'auto, puis Master of Puppets joue super souvent à Chaume. C'est rare qu'il y ait du thrash metal qui joue à la radio, puis merci à Stranger Things de ressortir notre bon vieux thrash. C'est vraiment cool.
Oui, c'est cool. Fait que là, c'est ça. Il y a toute une génération. Donc, il y avait Cliff Burton, le bassiste qui jouait, qui est décédé dans un accident de tournée. Donc,
à tourner avec Anthrax, justement, en Europe.
Ouais, je pensais que c'était Def Leppard.
Il était avec Anthrax, il était en tournée avec eux, puis il était dans des bus différents, évidemment.
Il y avait pas Def Leppard aussi? C'est pas là que le batteur a perdu son bras?
Non, je pense pas que ce soit en même temps, ça, non.
OK. Bref, où j'en étais...
Injustice.
Oui, non, c'est ça, Cliff Burton. Jason Newsted arrive en 1987. Il y a un premier mini-album EP, là, le 598 Garage Days Revisited. Le 598 EP, bon, tout ça. Donc, c'était son arrivée. Puis là, bon, il y a l'album, le vrai album, le 4e album du groupe, qui prend une tournure, puis c'est ça, c'est là que ça devient intéressant. Je pense que c'est l'album le plus sombre de Metallica. Déjà parce qu'il y avait je pense que les gars vivaient encore, il y avait encore de la difficulté avec la disparition de Cliff Burton. Fait que je pense qu'il y avait quelque chose à ce niveau-là. Puis les gars ont décidé aussi d'aller dans un métal plus
prog.
Ouais, c'est pas progressif, là. Tu sais, je trouve que le terme progressif.
Tu le trouves galvaudé un peu? J'ai tout le temps trouvé qu'il était un peu prog quand même. Tu sais, les structures de tunes, tu sais, on a des tunes.
En fait, moi, je dirais que c'est plus des compositions complexes parce qu'on est encore dans la structure du couplet-refrain avec quelques petites variations, mais il n'y a pas comme 24 changements dans une même tune, puis ça part pas d'un point A, puis ça finit à un point Z, tu sais. Dans les structures, on retrouvait quand même des couplets, refrains. Donc, c'est pour ça que je dirais plus compositions qui sont beaucoup plus complexes que ce qu'ils avaient fait avant. Donc, il y a un travail de recherche, puis c'est sûr que mettons, dans les mesures, là, on n'est pas toujours dans du 4/4, fait qu'il y a des mesures composées, là, puis des changements un petit peu plus étonnants. On n'est pas vraiment dans le prog, là, comme mettons, Dream Theater.
Non, c'est sûr. Hein.
Bref, puis c'est ça, il y a ce côté-là, donc il y a un côté très menaçant, très sombre dans les pièces. Bon, les pièces sont plus longues aussi, fait qu'on peut penser que c'est prog parce que la durée est peut-être plus longue, mais il y a quelque chose de très pessimiste dans l'album et dans les textes aussi, parce qu'avant ça, on avait des textes qui touchaient beaucoup à
le fantasy un peu.
Le fantasy, l'horreur, un petit peu de trucs d'adolescents, de rébellion, mais là, on est vraiment dans quelque chose de beaucoup plus mature. Puis encore aujourd'hui, je trouve que c'est vraiment... Leurs meilleurs textes sont sur cet album-là. Donc,
Harvester of Sorrow, Shortest Straw,
donc on parle de censure. C'est ça, on parle de censure, de corruption, de toutes sortes de choses, dont la mort aussi, évidemment, de la fatalité. Donc, justement, avec la pièce instrumentale To Live is to Die, qui est un hommage à Cliff Burton, en quelque part, parce que c'est une des dernières composition qui est créditée sur cet album-là de Burton, qui est vraiment une pièce instrumentale épique, avec des lignes vraiment puissantes là-dessus.
Oui, c'est heavy quand même si c'est instrumental, là, ça bûche. Là.
Oui, mais le reste est vraiment, ça bûche. C'est ça. Il y a un côté très raw dans leur approche. Et ben c'est ça, il y a le clip, c'est le One dont on parlait tantôt, qui est le premier clip qui va arriver, le premier clip qui va présenter Metallica, donc qui va tourner sur MTV et Musique Plus. Clip qui est avec en alternance du groupe, on voit des images d'un film qui s'appelle Johnny Got His Gun de Dalton, je me rappelle, Dalton Toubro, je pense, quelque chose comme ça.
Je sais pas le nom du réalisateur. C'est un vieux film quand même, des années...
C'est un film des années 70. C'est son seul film. C'est un film anti-guerre, si on veut. Là. Donc, dans le film, on voit, mais comme dans le clip, un vétéran qui a plus de jambes, plus de bras. Là, il reste juste comme son tronc et sa tête, puis il est maintenu en vie par des médecins. Donc, il y a tout un côté, tout l'aspect des dommages de la guerre. Puis il y a un petit côté, donc ces images-là sont en noir et blanc, il y a un côté un petit peu horrifique à tout ça aussi quand même. Là. C'était dans ce clip-là, c'était marquant, en tout cas, pour un petit cul là, de 12-13 ans, avec quelque chose de marquant dans ce clip-là, mais c'était intéressant de le souligner, là, que c'était quand même, il y avait, comme premier clip, c'était puis une tourne de 7 minutes, là, un clip complet, là, il y avait peut-être eu des éditions de 5 minutes, mais le clip officiel dure vraiment toute la durée de la chanson qui fait plus de 7 minutes.
Puis cette chanson-là, tu sais, ça commence, c'est quand même relativement doux, puis ça devient de plus en plus heavy, puis tu sais, l'espèce de bridge à la fin, là, c'est de la puissance, là,
avec le double bass.
Oui, c'est ça.
Avec le double bass drum qui vient comme rappeler un peu même le côté très guerrier, là, comme une mitraillette, là, comme des coups de feu, dans le fond. Là,
parce qu'au début de la tune, il y a de la mitraillette aussi.
Puis qui est appuyé avec la guitare, là, puis c'était vraiment...
c'est ça. C'est de valeur que Lars, en spectacle de nos jours, il y a de la misère un petit peu à les faire, ces petits...
il n'est pas tout seul à avoir de la misère. Kirk Hammett, il a de la misère des fois à pas s'enfarger dans ses... Ils sont devenus un peu paresseux, malheureusement, avec le temps. Mais à cette époque-là, il était vraiment au top du top.
Ah, mais
cet album-là, pour moi, c'est un game changer dans l'univers du métal. Je trouvais que c'était... Tu sais, on avait le thrash... party, le fun, tout ça. Mais là, il y avait un step-up là, au niveau du métal qui devenait comme beaucoup plus sérieux et menaçant. Puis ça, je pense que ça a influencé un band comme, par exemple, Meshuggah, qui est arrivé quelques années plus tard, qui, avant d'arriver dans le mat metal, le premier album avait un côté trash qui fait beaucoup penser à cet album-là, Injustice for All. Il y a des pièces avec, justement... des pièces instrumentales avec des extraits de films ou de paroles récitées.
Ça, je pense même pas l'avoir jamais écouté.
Puis la pochette, sur la pochette, on voit, bon, c'est pas la statue de la justice, là, comme ça, là, mais sur la pochette, on voit la statue de la liberté en avant-plan. Fait que je pense que c'était une de leurs une influence importante pour ce groupe-là avant d'arriver à la formule qu'on connaît aujourd'hui. En tout cas, mais pour moi, j'avais c'est ça, 12 ans quand l'album est sorti. Puis quand j'ai entendu ça, j'avais déjà un attrait pour la musique plus agressive puis tout ça, mais là, pour moi, c'était une révélation que le métal, ce qui était en train de se passer quand j'entendais ça, ça allait m'amener. Je savais que ce genre musical-là allait rester avec moi pour longtemps. Puis, je me suis pas trompé parce que c'est vrai aujourd'hui.
C'est excellent. Puis pour vrai, tu sais, puis je dis pas ça parce que c'est cet album-là que tu as sélectionné. C'est mon album de Metallica préféré, même si Cliff Burton n'est pas dessus, même si on n'entend pas la bass de Jason Newsted. Moi, je le trouve absolument incroyable. Puis c'est drôle parce que moi, mon album qui a confirmé que le métal était vraiment important dans ma vie, c'est Persons of Time, qui est sorti en 88. Tu sais, c'était la même période du métal qui devenait plus sérieux, plus sombre, plus mature, un peu plus prog. Moi, je vais dire prog pareil. Tu sais, bon, on s'entend Metallica, prog, tu sais, mais pour Metallica, je trouve que moi, c'est leur album qui était le... Puis c'est tellement drôle, pareil, que le Black Album, qui ont simplifié tout après pour arriver avec quelque chose de tellement propre et gentil et catchy, et leur plus grand succès. Mais Injustice, la barre était là. Content que tu nous ressortes cet album-là. Il mérite le spotlight. Puis en vinyle, si vous avez ça à la maison, il est double. Hein,
oui,
parce qu'il il est super long. Hein, les tunes
il fait plus d'une heure. Ouais.
Puis c'est magnifique. Puis l'illustration aussi du marteau avec le visage dessiné de Pusshead.
Pusshead, oui.
Pusshead, on sait pas.
Ouais, c'est vraiment génial, ça. Moi, je me souviens avoir tellement regardé ce dessin-là, puis capoté sur la pochette. Puis,
puis je sais pas si tu les as vus en show à cette époque-là.
Non, moi, la première fois que je les ai vus, c'était au stade, le show, là.
Le fameux show.
Dont on a parlé dans un épisode
précédent.
Ouais.
Mais ils sont venus, ils ont fait une tournée au Québec, tu sais, puis là, le temps file, on est obligé de rapper, mais ils ont joué à Chicoutimi, au Centre Georges Vézina, un petit aréna, avec, justement, avec Master, mais avec Injustice, avec la statue qui tombait pendant le spectacle, c'est ça. Ça devait être absolument incroyable. En tout cas, Injustice for All, mesdames et messieurs, allez écouter cet album-là. Écoutez aussi du bon Anthrax, parce que on a deux conversations qui suivent juste après ceci, avec Andy Bélanger, qui vous parle de musique, dont tout, Pussifer, un paquet de groupes comme ça, et évidemment, le grand Frank Bello. How are you, man? Great to see you.
Good. Look at that back there. Look at that ode to amazing back there. That looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's you're in my basement. Welcome to le sous-sol de la peur.
Cool.
Man, it's so cool to have you on the show today for this little chat about all the good stuff.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, when you started talking about what you were podcasting about, I was like, oh, it's like all my favorite things.
Yeah. No, it's been so fun doing those chat with artists. Could be filmmakers, a lot of rockers, metalheads, and comic book artists as well. So it's pretty cool. For people that don't know you, I'm gonna do a little biography.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Quick. So you're a comic book artist and you're a horror and metal lover. Toronto born. You've been living in Montreal for a decade now, close to that.
Yeah.
And you work with so many cool brands over the years. I'm gonna name drop a few. Vampirella, Lady Death. That guy over there.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah,
for DC Comics.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, that was my first gig. Was Friday the 13th. Yeah,
that's so cool. I wanna hear all about it. But a little animated trailer you did for Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. Of of course, a recent film called Psycho Gorman, Canadian film, pretty cool. The WWE, Heavy Metal Magazine, bands like Megadeth, Anthrax. Man, you were meant to be on my show.
Yeah, I'm pretty much built for it. The only thing I don't do is actually play metal.
Yeah, but there's some things that we can do. I cannot play an instrument. I tried to play guitar for a little while when I was young, but I was better at listening to music and talking about it. So
yeah.
So take me through what kind of music you were that got you into the heaviest stuff back in the days.
Okay, so I was born in the late 70s, so I was growing up in the 80s. So my very first tape I bought, because there was no CDs or anything yet, and tapes were like the big thing. Everyone had tapes. And the first tape I ever bought was "And Justice for All."
Started strong.
Yeah, and then once I got "And Justice for All," I got "Kill 'Em All" after that, and then I got into Megadeth, and it was like "Countdown to Extinction" and other stuff like that. Like, so my Metallica was the first sort of like music I was listening to when I was buying tapes and stuff like that. So metal was right away. I had a few friends that were super into horror movies and super into heavy metal, and their older brothers basically were like big metal heads. So we all ran around with like jean jacket vests with like patches and all that kind of stuff. From the time I was like in grade 5, 6, 7, 8, into those eras, like I was just listening to like Metallica and Megadeth, and then I got into like Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden. Those were sort of like I remember Number of the Beast feeling like I shouldn't be listening to this. Like, this is legit satanic music, and at a time and an age where you don't understand that like that stuff is silly. You actually kind of like think it might be legit.
yeah. And
So,
band like Iron Maiden, the Slayer, they got some imagery, really, scary stuff. How did your parents, reacted when you brought those CDs or, cassette home?
Yeah, my parents were always like pretty cool with that stuff. I mean, like if you went in my bedroom, like as a little like kid, like I had a gigantic 6-foot by 4-foot poster of Elvira on a Cadillac.
Nice.
Like, I think I got it when I was like 8.
Wow.
Like 8 or 9. Yeah. 8 or 9.
And she's always pretty sexy. So
yeah. And I had Fangoria magazine like cutouts from horror movies sort of like pasted up all over my room. And I was my dad left when I was 6, and we'll get into that because it was a big thing with my comics. But when I was growing up, I was going to England all the time with my stepfather. He had a family over there in Coventry. And I got these like Kiss posters that were like amazing. And the Kiss posters were like stuff you couldn't get in North America. So it was like shots of like Gene Simmons like blowing fireballs, and like those were the posters I had, and they were like really, really cool. I had a few like really great like Black Sabbath posters that I got in England when I was a kid. So
your mom was really cool with the horror stuff and the metal.
I mean, I had like really bad nightmares as a kid, so she was always kind of like, why do you do this to yourself, sort of thing. But yeah, like
that's cool.
Yeah, I was just like really into monsters for as long as I can remember. I was like never really a superhero guy. I was always a monster guy. So if there was comics about monsters or whatever, that's what I was into. And that's how I got into comics.
And did you start drawing really at a young age and all?
Yeah. I started drawing stuff when I was around 4 or 5 and did not stop. I was voracious. So like I said, my dad left when I was like 6, and he used to take me every Thursday to this bookstore called KW Secondhand Books.
Okay.
And he was looking for books for his work because he had left my mom and he was on his own and trying to like get his career going in marketing.
Okay.
So he'd be looking for marketing books, and I'd be plopped down on the floor in front of this gigantic wall of comics. Like there was a whole wall of comics, no bags and boards, just like they were like just stacked on top of each other. So you couldn't even see the spines of them. It was just paper, and it was all yellow because the guy in the store smoked. So it was just this yellow wall of comics, and I would sit there and go through it, and I'd pull out Creature Commandos, Werewolf by Night, Curse of Frankenstein with Buscema, Tomb of Dracula, Creature Commandos and GI Robot were like the big ones for me. Those were DC books. And all monster stuff. So I was into like anything that had monsters. And then if you looked at those comics in that time, even the EC horror comics, they were like the album covers to every heavy metal album you got looked like, the comics I was reading. So it all kind of like went together. And there were these books, I forget the name of them. They're something tree. They had them at the library, but basically they were like the Universal Horror monsters had kids books that they used to make, and they're orange. I have them at the studio. I'll have to show you sometime. They're orange. They're about yay big, and it'd be like all on the Wolfman or all on Frankenstein or all on Dracula, like Bela Lugosi's or Karloff's or whatever. So I used to like be obsessed with getting those out of the library when I was a little kid, and then I'd come home and draw all that stuff. And because my parents were separated, I was kind of like left to myself a lot of the time. And I would just spend that time drawing, like voraciously drawing. And then as I got into school and there were other kids that were drawing, I was like viciously competitive with the other kids in school.
Oh, yeah.
No matter what. Yeah. So no matter what school I ever went to, even all the way up into like, college, university, I had to be the best at drawing. Like
that was your thing, and you were good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, it like fed me. And then once I became professional, I feed off that still. Like if I see someone that's like really good, I'm not as crazy anymore, but like it really like gets under my skin. I'm like, oh, I got to get back to the drawing board and like kick out something like as good as
it's a good motivation to be to want to top yourself, all the time.
Yeah, and I'm not like angry at the other artists or competing with the other artists. I'm competing with myself. But when I see something that blows my mind, I have to go and like get back into the studio and start making stuff that I think is like awesome. So I mean that's how I got into comics, and like that was basically how I got into metal. And as far as like horror movies go, I remember, when my parents split up, I would always go to my uncle's house, and he had like daughters. And the first horror movie I saw was Jaws.
Oh yeah.
And that one like affected me for the rest of my life. I don't like the ocean. I don't enjoy, like, I'll go to the ocean, but like I'd rather go to like the sea in Europe or a lake. I don't go anywhere near like the ocean too much. I'm terrified of sharks, like literally like freaking terrified. So anytime I've been in the ocean, it's just like pure dread for me. Like I hate it.
It's understandable. It's so well done, and it's a good thing that the Bruce, the shark, didn't work, because Spielberg ended up, not showing him that much. So it's even scarier to us, because he's underneath the water and you don't see him. He's there, and he's gonna eat that kid on the mat, and
it's still like rocks me. I'm terrified of like kind of like I respect the ocean and more now, because I'm like, you could get attacked by a shark, but you're probably like the worst thing that can happen is you get dragged in by an undertow and drowned. Like
exactly, man. It almost happened to me once. I think it was like 2003. I went to the East Coast, and I was like, we were driving, I was with my ex at the time, and I think we drove like 10 hours. And when we saw the ocean, we were so happy, but it was like pretty late at night, at like 8, 9, was dark, and we got sucked up, by the current and all. And, I swallowed a bunch of water, and we survived. But oh man,
A lot of people die that way. A lot
yeah,
of people die. There's been
elements.
a few people in comics that have died that way. There was like a famous anchor from Wildstorm that died that way.
Oh yeah,
He was snorkeling with his wife and never to be seen again. See you
yeah.
later.
It's
Yep.
it's scary, and
Yeah.
and the kraken, of course. You don't want to
Oh,
be
yeah.
eaten by the kraken.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I want to just talk about the first gig that you got in horror, man. The Friday the 13th comics.
Yes.
That's one of the first big gigs, or the first gig at all, or
So in high school, I was making like comics, right? Like I was making little comics, and I had met some people that were like in the local comic scene in my hometown.
kind of
And like
a fanzine kind of comics.
Yeah, like little
staple that
fancy stuff.
did
It
yourself.
wasn't
Okay.
very good. Like I wasn't very good. But I mean, I was making my own comics. I knew that I wanted to be a comic artist from the time I was like 5 and 6, kind of like
Wow.
Wayne Gretzky,
Wow.
with hockey.
Oh yeah,
I've like
as early.
you could have asked me my entire life what I wanted to do, and it was just I'm going to be a comic book artist. Like ever since I was 5 and 6, that's all I wanted to do. I've had a singular driven vision to be that.
It's
only.
amazing. It's rare. It's a rare thing.
Yeah. So I always felt lucky for that. But I do a lot of stuff the hard way, and it took me a little longer than some people. So, but when I was, I went to college, they didn't want me drawing comics, so I was kind of doing it on the side and going to Comic Cons, like the Chicago Comic Con in Rosemont.
Okay.
I would go to, and I'd go to the one in Toronto, the few in Toronto a little bit, but only a little bit. And then I was, when I was like 23 after school, I moved downtown Toronto, like right downtown, and got like a part-time job meter reading, and it would end at 1. So I'd come home and do comics after that. And I started getting into the scene in Toronto. So I was like meeting up with like guys like Darwin Cook became like my big influence. He was like my big brother, and Mike Cho and Ramon Perez and Chip Zdarsky and Scott Hepburn, and some of those. Scott Hepburn was like my roommate for a while, and we all were part of Raid Studios, which is a big studio in Toronto. And it wasn't long that I got invited. So I used to throw like big keg parties. I was in a house with a bunch of other people from college, so there was like girls and stuff. So
you were networking. Kind of.
Yeah. So the girls that I went to college with were all dating hairspray metal dudes out of Toronto. They were all in hairspray metal bands. So every like a couple times a week, I'd be going to like hairspray metal shows.
Okay.
And like, and it was, speed metal, hairspray metal. Like it was amazing, like retro kind of stuff. And it was really fun. Cool. So we had a party house, and I'd start going to Comic Cons, and I used to rent like classic cars. Like I used to get 58 Oldsmobiles. And my girlfriend and her friends would be running around on roller skates, and I'd be selling comics out of the trunk. It was when rockabilly was really big. Okay. So and then the other comic book artists who were legit, who are all in this like new studio they just started, were like, this guy's like crazy. So I'd invite them to my house for keg parties, and there'd be girls there. So they'd be like, oh, this is amazing. So, I'd be inviting comic book artists there to meet them, to get into my industry. And I'd be, surrounded by like metalheads.
That's cool, man. It's a cool original way to do stuff, man.
That's like basically how I broke in. So when I was 27, we had gone down to California, and we were
for a trip.
No, for the Comic-Con, the big San Diego Comic-Con. I went 13 or 14 years in a row when I was sort of like in my late 20s into, almost like my 40s. Like I think the last one I went to, I was like maybe like 40. So it was like 14 or 15 years. I went straight every year to San Diego. Wow. Anyway, we were going to San Diego, but also we went to DreamWorks, and there was a movie that they were making called Megamind. And they tapped me and I think 4 or 5 of the other artists in my studio to be like the concept artists on that Megamind movie. Wow. And at the time, with those directors. They ended up getting canned, but those directors were making a Jack Kirby movie. So it was all going to be Jack Kirby style artwork in Megamind. It would have been amazing. It just ended up being some 3D.
Yeah. They changed their mind.
But it originally was going to be like a ode to Jack Kirby thing. And it was going to be really crazy. So we went down for that meeting. And right after we went to Wildstorm, which is Jim Lee's studio. And when I was there, I met up with this editor that was working with my partner in the studio, Carl Herschel. He was doing a zombie graphic novel for them.
Okay.
And what was going on was when we met the guy, Ben Abernathy, who was his editor, that guy was the head of running the New Line license. So Wildstorm had just been bought out by DC Comics and Warner Brothers. They owned the New Line licenses. So they had just started doing Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I think they did one Lost Boys comic.
And that was early 2010s or?
Yeah, it's this came up in the studio the other day. So it was 2006, 2007.
Okay, that's right.
And I had to do a bunch of samples, but when we were all there, everyone from the studio. And when I saw his stuff, this guy was like me. He was like a big metalhead. He was super into horror movies and horror comics.
So it clicked instantly.
Everything in that studio. The other guy's into superhero stuff. I was the monster guy, and I was the horror guy. So, they were all asking him for work, and I was just chatting him up, and he kept saying, no, I don't have work for you guys, but maybe in the future. By the end of the meeting, he was like, hey, Andy, do you want 2 issues of Friday the 13th? And I was like, yeah. Ever since then, those guys never invited me to another pitch meeting with an editor as long as they lived. If Marvel came to Toronto to hang out with them, or DC came to Toronto to hang out with those guys, I never got invited again after that.
But you were the horror guy. You were the only one that could, land, something like that,
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I got that, and it was really weirdly received, because at that time I had a very Jack Davis style, very EC horror comic style, instead of the quote unquote realistic style. But people still bring up that comic. A lot of people loved that comic. It had dot patterns before. A lot of people, if you look at Batman right now, there's a lot of dot patterns and stuff like that. I was using tons of that stuff in 2006, 2007 to make everything look retro. I was really into retro stuff in 2006 and 2007.
And how many issues did you end up? I'm sorry. How many issues did you end up doing?
I think it was just the one, and after that, I got slated to do the whole series after that, and then New Line, and then they lost the New Line license.
Oh shit!
So while I was finishing off the other one, waiting for more scripts, they're like, "Oh man, we just lost the New Line license." So I was like, "Okay, that's a bummer." But that was my first big gig at DC Comics and Wildstorm and. Yeah, and a big license. Wow. Yeah, that was
exactly. It's pretty big, and I'm sure you were a fan of those movies back in the 80s.
Absolutely. So I remember being 6 years old, and a friend of mine who lived down the street, we went for a sleepover, and his parents did not care what he watched. They would get him any horror movie they wanted.
Oh yeah.
We went to the video store, and he got us 4 or 5 movies, and we came back, and I was 6, and we watched Friday the 13th Part 3.
Okay.
We watched Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 and Phantasm 1, in the same night. And I was
6 years
staying
old.
over at his house, 6 years old, terrified.
Of course.
Terrified.
That's the first Friday the 13th with his mask.
That's the first one with his mask. That's where he got his mask.
And Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one is terrifying.
Terrifying for
the best one
kid.
of the lot. Wow,
the best one.
So you were already hooked on horror comics at that point, but those movies it traumatized you in a good way.
Yeah. I didn't sleep that whole night. That's for sure.
Oh man.
So I was really into it, and I got really into Fangoria. I bought every Fangoria magazine that would come out, and it was really great. I really, really dug it. And so that was my first gig, was working on Friday the 13th. And I think I was 26, 27. And that also kind of was me becoming professional in comics entirely. I had some other contracts at the same time as that I was doing that were also horror comics for another company called Moonstone. But like I ended up after that was it. Like I was making my living as a comic book artist from basically 2006 2007 all the way till now. Like I've been living on making comics the whole time.
It's so cool, man. Congrats on that, for real. Sometimes it's really hard for artists to find, output that are paying the bills.
Yeah, totally. And you have up and down years. Like some years, like you're getting tons of stuff. Like in 2019, the beginning of the year was like on fire, and I was living in Florence, Italy. And then when I got back in the summer, it just tanked. Like every project fell through, and then we got into COVID. And then I did a job for Behavior working on Dead by Daylight. And then all of a sudden it's just been like pretty much straight up ever since then. So it's
tell me about you told me already, but tell me about that phone call you got from Dave Mustaine.
Oh yeah. It was when I was
pretty wild.
So I started working for Heavy Metal Magazine, and I've been published by Heavy Metal a few times. I started there. I think the first gig I got was with Donnie Cates and Duncan Trussell. Duncan Trussell is like one of Joe Rogan's good buddies. He's like a sort of like he's into a lot of like sort of like psychedelia and all that stuff. And Duncan Trussell is really cool, and I got to talk to him a whole bunch and talk about projects. And so him and Donnie were working on something together, and I ended up illustrating it for Heavy Metal Magazine. And from there, I worked on the Megadeth book that they did with Dan Fogler. So he's the actor from Fantastic Beasts and Walking Dead and Fanboys and a whole bunch of stuff like what's the ping pong one? Balls of Fury.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
So. Anyway, so Dan has become like a good buddy. So like I'm doing some stuff for Dan right now.
Oh yeah,
but
that's cool.
Yeah, so we were doing that, and Jeff Krelitz, the guy who was running Heavy Metal at the time, like called me one time with Dave on the phone and said that that was his favorite, and they ended up, my story was his favorite, and they ended up taking the one shot I did of Vic Rattlehead and putting it embossed on the cover of the one that comes with the album, the book that comes with the album. So that,
and
was
of course,
like,
you were a Megadeth fan back in the days.
Massive. And actually, what's funny is I was slated in 2010 to do like a whole slew of Megadeth, like t-shirts for a whole tour, and through an ad agency. And they wanted me to do Insane Clown Posse first. And they wanted me to draw like the guy from Insane Clown Posse. And I hated his drawings. So I was like, I can't do this. So I ended up like screwing up that gig. So I didn't get the Megadeth gig. So it's kind of funny that years later, it kind of like went full circle, and I ended up doing some Megadeth stuff. And then from there, I worked with Frank Bello, the bassist from Anthrax.
That's right.
Yeah, I did a piece for the Anthrax anthology. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And
that, I'm proud of that one. That one as well, like the one I did for Megadeth. That one turned out really, really well. I kind of had like this complete out of the box thinking about the layouts, and it turned out really well.
Yeah, definitely. And can you remember the first time you heard Anthrax music?
Oh, it was around the same time as I was listening to like Metallica. Like,
which record must have been?
I can't remember which Anthrax record was the first one I heard.
Okay,
I can't remember at all.
But man, they're great, man, and they're still.
Oh yeah,
going strong. 41 year later, it's crazy. People are folding back and forth. Slayer is not there anymore, and it's kind of hard for those heavy metal bands to keep with the era and all. But some they keep doing what they do, and it's pretty cool. Like Anthrax, I'm there. Whenever they put out a new record, it's awesome.
So
yeah,
I think we were probably both at the Heavy MTL festival where Slayer played that last show.
Mm-hmm.
They came on after Ghost, and that was nothing but red lights and fire. And that mosh pit was so big, and I was wrestling. So IWS, I'm also a professional wrestler. So
exactly,
IWS, my main crew that I work with, we always do the wrestling at Heavy MTL. And we kind of stopped for the day, and I was hanging out with Sexy Eddie, who's now my tag team partner, and his girlfriend, and we were watching Slayer, and we were pretty drunk, and I remember just thinking, this is probably the closest thing I'll get to like medieval warfare. Like, you're listening to Slayer, there's fire everywhere, it's just people fighting and like a thing, and I was just like, this has got to be what it's like to be in a medieval war.
Yeah,
right. Only give everyone in there swords.
Exactly.
That's what this is like.
And Slayer mosh pits, they were always the craziest. It's really intense.
And
people, with bleeding and
oh yeah, you just saw like this huge, just looked like a gigantic brawl. With like thousands of people, and just right in the middle. I don't know if you remember, they had lifted a guy up in a wheelchair to watch. Did you see that guy? He was held up. He was in a wheelchair.
I don't know. I might have missed him because I was in the photo pit. I'm a concert photographer as well for the three first songs. And I don't know where I was for the rest of the show, but they used to be one of my favorites, Slayer.
Slayer's so amazing. Yeah, over the years, like Slayer just keeps in sort of like my thing. So my favorite band, I should get into this. My favorite band of all time is Tool. So Tool is my absolute 100% favorite band. I love every album they've ever made. Every song on every album they've ever made. They've been with me since high school. I've listened to them nonstop, almost daily since high school. I'm a Tool like fanatic, and I got really into them in college again.
Me too.
And
they're great visually as well. The album covers,
like
the videos
and everything. So as an artist, one of my best friends from when I was 19 up until now, we're still like best friends. He's a painter, but we went to art school together, and I listened to Tool in high school and I loved it. Like Undertow had come out, I think when I was in grade 10 or 11. And he was like so diehard into them in college that I got super addicted, and we would listen to them every day. And like when we would go out, and it was bananas. So Tool is working. I would love to work with Adam Jones or Maynard one day on anything. And I've come like close. I've come close. Yeah. There's been like little whisperings here and there about
because
how I could meet Maynard or how I could work with Maynard, but like one day I gotta at least meet them. Like for sure.
Maynard is gonna be in town next week because we're recording this on the 1st of November, and Pussifer is playing. I got a photo pass. I'm gonna be there to shoot the show. I'm really excited. You should go, man. You should.
I haven't seen that band yet.
Me too.
That band.
I've
seen Perfect Circle like a billion times, but like I haven't seen Pussifer yet.
Me either, but it's really interesting sounding, and I never listened to them a bunch, but I was more of a Tool fan and a Perfect Circle, but it's gonna be a fun show to shoot because Maynard,
he's always crazy.
He's insane. That voice, he's my second favorite singer in the whole world. First one is Mike Patton, but
you told me, and he's up there for me too. I love Faith No More, but Maynard's my number one, and then my favorite guitarist is Tony Iommi.
Oh man, Sabbath,
by far,
of course.
Tony Iommi is like a god. But going back on horror a little bit, because it's closing in, it's almost the end of the interview. I see the countdown. I'm like, there's so much to talk about still.
I know it goes back so fast, talking about that stuff, but horror movie wise, are you a follower of do you follow careers of filmmakers, or a franchise that you cannot not watch the sequel or the prequel or the remake?
So when I draw, I basically watch horror. I watch everything
in the background. Okay.
In the background, I watch everything. Over the last 3 months, August up until now, I have watched every horror movie on Netflix, Amazon, Crave, because like streaming is big now. So like,
of course,
any of them that came at Shudder, I've watched everything on Shudder. I've watched.
It's easy access. There's no video club and video store anymore.
Yeah, so I just go bonkers and I watch literally everything. Friday the 13th is my favorite. Like 1 through 4, amazing.
Oh yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 1 through 4, amazing. Halloween.
Have you seen the latest ones?
No, yeah. So I haven't seen the new one, but I saw the one before it and I hated it so much.
So bad. It was so
bad. It was so dumb that I was just like, and then I started reading the reviews of the new one. Like when I see a trailer and I read reviews, like I'm like, I don't really need to see that. You know? Like I saw the trailer for Black Adam, and I'm like a rock super fan in wrestling, but in the movies he's like Goldberg. Like his movies are ridiculous, so I couldn't help it. I had to go to see Black Adam, and it was terrible. I knew it was going to be terrible. I saw the trailer; it was awful.
I wasn't sure.
As far as horror goes, like my favorite movie of all time is The Shining, followed by John Carpenter's The Thing.
The Thing, of course,
right?
Classic.
And then you know I'm obsessed with Lost Boys. I'm obsessed with Lost Boys. So is my buddy Carl in the studio. We have like Lost Boys like posters and paraphernalia everywhere.
And that's cool. Lost Boys, it's pretty cool. Have you seen the sequels? I think there's a few.
They're so bad. No,
they're really bad.
They should never have happened.
But you know, Corey Feldman, you know, he's not what he used to be.
He wasn't the hero of the first movie. He's like a side character, like a side character. To think that he's like the main part of those movies, you're like, no.
Yeah.
Without Kiefer Sutherland, it's over.
That's right. But that was a fun time. You know, that movie, that was fun. The soundtrack was great, I think, as well. And, you know, everything was cool about it.
It's like that era, that sort of like, late 80s, early 90s for metal and horror was, they're just, you can't beat it. It's the best.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the best. Yeah. But as far as franchises go, I'm like a Jason freak. Like I love Friday the 13th. So like getting that gig was a dream gig.
Of course. But it's been in limbo illegally for a while. But I think I just heard this week they announced a Crystal Lake series.
Yeah, I saw that.
On Peacock. So maybe it's gonna be good. Perhaps. I'm curious. You know,
I just watched Freddy vs. Jason again on the weekend, and I love that movie. I like half the time. I just like if I'm bored, I'll just fast forward to the fight between Freddy and Jason, and be like, this is like this is like the best thing of all time.
But you know, I was chatting about that movie this week with somebody else, and it's crazy how good it is, but it wasn't really supposed to be that fun. It's crazy how good they managed to fuse those two franchises together. And you know, that guy Ronnie Yu, he did Bride of Chucky before, and we were kind of okay, it's gonna be cool. He did great for Chucky, and now he got those two juggernaut of the fucking.
So
slashers.
I was at a Comic-Con in San Diego, and they had built the forest from Crystal Lake, and you could go in and take a photo as Freddy or a photo as Jason. At that San Diego Comic-Con is the one where they announced the movie. So they had Robert Englund in full makeup and the guy who played Jason in it show up to like the panel to speak. And you should look it up. It's on YouTube. It's really, really cool. But I was there for that. Like I was.
And did you take a picture as a slasher there?
I had it somewhere. Yeah. Of course I did. And what's funny is that's the first time I met oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Frodo.
Elijah Wood.
Elijah Wood, yeah. So Elijah Wood comes to Montreal a lot, and he makes like stuff with Ubisoft.
Yeah,
and,
he did that transference, that
and
VR.
I've hung out with him a bunch of times when he comes, and we'll hang out or go out and go for dinner. And
he's pretty
it's
cool.
funny because the first time I met him was at that photo op.
Oh,
so
wow.
like I was in line with my girlfriend to go in and take the photo, and his like security guards like pushed me out of the way, and like he came in and he was like gave his security guard shit for pushing me.
Okay.
And that was the first time I met him, and then years later we ended up like hanging out and being friends. So it was like,
man,
it was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And I was fortunate enough to have a coffee with him at the studio at Ubisoft, just chatting about horror films and stuff, and that was great. And it was great.
Awesome.
And it was great to chat with you as well tonight.
Yeah, man.
For not long enough, so we're gonna catch up.
Yeah, for sure.
So thanks again, man. That was a blast, and keep on, putting those out. Mother Trucker.
Yeah. So that's
your comics.
That's my new stuff, Mother Trucker. So go to lethalcomics.com and you can pick up Mother Trucker. That's my new series. It's all about space truck and wrestling ladies. It's pretty sweet.
It's awesome. You cannot go wrong with those.
Yeah.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, later, buddy.
See you soon, and perhaps at that Pussifer gig.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be badass. I'd love to come to that show. That'd be great.
See you
later,
soon.
buddy.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I see great things behind you, at ease. Thank you so much, Frank Bello, to be here with me.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm impressed with your background there too. See, I have stuff all around my house, and I have them. Look, I'm telling you right now, between my wife and my son, who are diehard horror fans, themselves, really, they're going to drive me out of this house when I say this, Chris. They're overloading this. They have dolls. I'll say it to you right off the bat. We go shopping quite a lot, and we go to the different cons, and we buy quite a lot of stuff. We collect quite a lot of stuff. They have dolls that I think are going to come to life and kill me one day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it scares the hell out of me. Some of the things they pick out, I have to have in certain rooms. It's like, I don't need this while I'm trying to sleep. I don't need this thing, I don't need this thing looking at me while I'm trying to sleep. It doesn't work for me. They're going to drive me crazy.
It's so funny that you say that, because it's I'm trying to get my daughter, which is 8 now, to be into horror films. She's quite scared about, all that looking at my dolls as well. And but I'm going step by step, showing her like the Indiana Jones movies, Jurassic Park, the family.
Smart.
Or exactly, but it's I'm getting there.
Organically, it will come. You just lead them a little bit. See, my son and my wife is always a horror fan anyway, so that just carried over. They bonded, I guess, through horror more than me. I mean, I was always a horror fan, but I'm old school Universal stuff, and then after that, right? Okay. So they teach me the new horror stuff, which is really cool, with what to look for and what not to look for. They're actually really good at it.
It's awesome, because it's all about sharing, as fans, we want to talk about that stuff. That's why I started this podcast last year, because I was stuck at home without any concert to attend, and without meeting people, because I'm a talker. I like to communicate with people. That's what I do. So it's an honor to have you on the show, because
Thank you.
As far as Anthrax go, I've been a fan for a while. I've seen you, so many times live. I've been listening to the records ever since. I think that the first one for me was Spreading the Disease.
Wow.
I got to saw you finally live back in '98 at the Polywog.
Oh my God! Of course,
in Jonquière, which is my hometown and Voivod's hometown.
Of course. Yes.
So, and I saw you a few months ago in the summer in Trois-Rivières. It was so fun to see you again live on stage with Hatebreed and Black Label Society. You're about to go back on tour with the Municipal Waste, one of my favorites. So, and having you, because Anthrax, we know about Charlie and Scott love for horror, all things horror. They've been vocal about it and they've been talking about it in media for quite a while. But ever since last year, when I watched all those really, really, really cool 40th anniversary episodes on YouTube about the history of the band, I saw that you were a fan as well with those Chucky dolls in the back. So I figured I need to talk to this guy. You know?
This is about. I'm not exaggerating, Chris, when I say this. There's about 20 Chucky dolls in this house as I speak.
20.
Collector, like the serious ones,
the big ones.
The big ones that are definitely coming to life, dude. It's going to happen one day. But I mean, in my son's, we have a spare room in his hangout room where he plays video games. Chucky is everywhere. It's look, and they have a new. By the way, they have a new great show. I don't know if you've seen it yet. They have
the series. The series. Yeah.
The first season was really good. The second one's coming out. They actually did a really good job with writing on that. So they kept it up to par where they should have, which I'm really happy about. So when I see something come from a movie, like a theater thing, and coming into a TV show, you're usually like, is it going to be as good? But the writing is really good.
That's right. He was there since the very beginning. Mancini, I think his name is.
I think it's Mancini. Yeah,
that's right. And so he's been there since the very beginning. He's been directing, the latest movies, and
so it's his baby, which is awesome. It carries it over, and you can see when people care. You know what I mean? You can see in the writing and what the little things you look for. I love that. And it's funny you say this because I know my guitar player and drummer Charlie and Scott. They've always been vocal about their love for horror. I've always been, you could tell for my stuff way back when. Creature from the Black Lagoon is still one of my all-time favorite films, and just in the horror way, the way it looks, the way it was shot. It's very deep for me. So that whole Universal thing that they did, but there's a black and white thing. There's very specific horror love that I have for it. I don't see a lot of. I wish they would go back to that a little bit. I know they can't go the black and white again, but there's something very pure about the black and white. Even the Frankenstein, the Dracula, the Mummy. All these great films. I would like to see them if they're going to remake anything, because they're going to try and do all this. Of
course,
but if they want. I understand there's an audience for the colorization of a film, but man, there's something really beautiful about black and white film.
Definitely, because there's been a few black and white movies in the recent years. Ed Wood from Tim Burton.
That was a great movie. I love that movie. Right? We all love that movie.
Yeah.
And there was something to say about it. It had I don't know. It took you back a little bit. It put you in a zone. It put you in a mindset when you started to watch the film that it was going deeper. And I like that. And not with every film. I'm just saying, if they could just try to take that chance and maybe go back a little bit and get that. There was such a purity to it that I loved. I still love. I watch these films constantly. Even the Abbott and Costello. Look, I'll show you. I can show you this real quick. Can you see that over there?
Yeah.
Abbott and Costello. See what I mean?
That's nice.
It's that was fun.
Yeah,
they took the greatest of the greats. You had Dracula, Frankenstein, and Wolfman,
and they were the very first of the crossovers. We had Freddy versus Jason, but they did it back in the days.
Absolutely. So I love the whole Freddy. The whole Freddy thing. Look, let's face it. Horror is a great distraction for life, right? Just like music. That's why I equate music to horror, because it was. And growing up, people have had hard lives. I think we need this outlet. Like, you see what I found beautiful about your background there? You could look to these things and say Chris had a bad day that day. I can go in that room and just take my mind off of that back day, and it brings me to another place.
Exactly.
Exactly like music does. So that's why I think music and horror it's an outlet for us. It's a fantasy. It's a beautiful thing that life gives us, right?
Exactly. And especially, the more extreme stuff, such as metal and horror, because, we get, as you said, so many bad things happening in life. Could be money problems, could be death in the family, could be disease. There can be so many things. But, when I go downstairs in the basement and I, put a new piece of my collection and I try to find the best way to put it in the collection, time stops and I don't have any problems anymore.
Isn't that beautiful though? When you come out of that and all of a sudden, like I'm in my basement right now. Are you in your basement?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is my getaway. This is where I wrote my book. This is where I write music. It's not a big space. It's a very small space. I don't need a very big space, but it's very cozy to me. It's very, I can come here, like you just said, and bad days. If I come down the stairs, I know I'm getting rid of them because I can watch movies down, I watch movies down here, just get away, or just stare at the stuff that I have, the horror stuff, or play a song. I can do any of that. And so when I come down here, it's kind of like I'm leaving all the garbage in the outside world, and it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. And so let's go back in the beginning, okay? Sure. Because you were talking about Universal monsters and stuff. And can you remember the very first horror film or any horror work of art? Could be a comics, a novel that you that did that thing for you.
The thing that did it for me with these, that's why they're so special to me. These films back here, I think it was Frankenstein. I think that was the first film I've seen on Universal
on TV.
On TV. And remember, because these were all made in the 30s and 40s, and so everything was replayed, right? So I was born in the 60s, so a little different. But to see these things and the effect it had on me, number one, is this big, scary looking monster. Of course, we all seen pictures of it, but all of a sudden on TV, it was live. It was live, and there was a storyline to it. And I love the story. Exactly. I love the storyline, the music. They married everything into this beautiful, beautiful story. And it just took me for a ride, which is what I wanted. And, growing up, I grew up, my history was I grew up without a dad. So I was always looking for outlets to take my mind off of being in that pain kind of thing. So this was another, it was music and this. So, and then when I found out about Frankenstein, I went back, of course, then I found the mummy. The mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon really hit me hard. It just, the way it was shot, the way the creature moved, there's still something very special when I watch that film. If that film is going on TV somewhere, I'll stop and I have to watch the whole film. That's one of those, right?
Okay.
A lot of these, Dracula, Bela Lugosi, let's face it, and then you got Lon Chaney Jr.
He had some class.
Lon Chaney Jr. They made them real. They made them real and they lived them. And that's the best way I could put them. I kind of wish, I don't know if you feel like this, Chris. Do you feel like sometimes you were alive in those days when they were filming and when these were, because you could see it in the movie theater and feel that whole vibe that people, oh my God, back in those days. That scare would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Because, as fans, we're kind of, I don't want to say jaded, but maybe we are a little bit because we saw so many things, so many scary things. But back in the days, that was new. It must have been amazing to be able to see those in the theaters, for the first time and really be scared. And, all the movies that I'm a big fan of so many movies, but, movies like the Exorcist.
Great move. Great point. I have a story for you with that.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I want to hear yours, but that got me.
No, I don't have any. I don't have any stories because I just I heard so many stories about that film in theaters, people fainting and people being really out of their minds because it's still outrageous today. I cannot imagine back in '73. But what's your story? I want to.
My story was, and talk about Chris. I'll preface this by saying that was the film that really went mental. It made you think that because the storyline, it says could this really happen? And it fucks with your mind. It really does. It fucks with your mind. So my grandmother, rest her soul, she took Charlie Benanti. Charlie Benanti from Anthrax.
He was one of my guests.
Oh, he was great. Yeah. Well, we're related. We're related. So my grandmother took Charlie and myself to see The Exorcist.
At what age?
I think we were I think I was 10. Charlie was 12 or 13, like that, right? And, I'm just going to the movies. I'm happy. I'm going to see this horror film, not really knowing the actual storyline. I saw the cool pictures and stuff like that. Yes, and being a horror fan.
Because the poster, you don't know anything.
Right.
It's eerie, and there's an exorcism, and that's it.
Exactly. So you just say, okay, what is this? It can't be that bad. And nothing really, Chris, I'm getting excited about this talking.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Nothing really got me like that film. Like from all this stuff that I grew up on and all that, nothing really got me like that film mentally, because it fucked with my mind during the film.
Yeah.
During the film. So you're following, it's a great storyline. You're following the storyline, they're in Washington, blah, blah, blah.
It's kind of a melodrama in the beginning.
Totally. It's mellow. They set you up so well. Don't they set you up? Because you have no idea
exactly what's going to hit you.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, the kid's in her bed, right? We all have beds, right? I'm a kid at that age. I'm like, and all of a sudden you start hearing these horrible, horrible noises right away, and you're hearing the speakers, and that's impressionable. It's like, oh my God. And then when the film opens up, it's like, holy shit, never saw anything like that. So I remember, my grandmother's sitting between Charlie and myself. And I remember I was cold sweats, right? Cold sweats when everything started to take off, when she's spinning the head and all that stuff.
Yeah. The vomit and stuff.
The vomit's happening.
Yeah.
I'm like cold sweats, but I don't want to let up. I said, it's got to be all right. Nobody's freaking out, but I'm cold sweating, right?
I'm going to survive, but
I'm going to survive. It's almost like you're on a roller coaster. Holy shit. It's like, oh my God.
Exactly.
There's another hill. But and all of a sudden I hear Charlie talk to my grandmother, who's his mom, say, Ma, he goes, what does it mean when you feel like a cold sweat and you feel lightheaded? And he started to get lightheaded on it, dude. And my grandmother took that as, we better go. So we had to walk out. But we saw most of the stuff. The action was happening, right?
But it was even worse. I think to get out of that movie's thinking she's going to be possessed for the rest of her life.
Yes, because we didn't know. Then we had to follow up with it and find out what the fuck happened, because we left, right?
Perhaps she died. I don't know.
We don't know. Could this happen to me when I go home? That's what you leave. That's what it leaves you with. That's why it's a mind fuck, Chris. Because it's like, wait, can I go home and this shit happened to me? That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't want this. So, I slept with the light, the lights were on forever after that. Every light, if I hear any noises, what the fuck was that? It was like that. The TV, I put the TV on. I was so scared, but
wow,
I love that fucking film so much to this day.
Exactly. It's one of the scariest film of all times.
I agree.
It's insane. And I guess, from to have lived that experience, in a very young age, is there any scariest movie that you saw after that?
Nothing. You know what? I think that's the bar. Yeah, that sets the bar right there, because of I was impressionable at the age, the way it affected me. Because now, like you said before, we're a little jaded now because we've seen a lot of horror films and stuff like that. But I was so impressed with that film. Recently, Anthrax, on the last tour we had with Black Label and April, we had a day off in Washington.
Okay.
Like a lot
you went to the stairs, right? I saw pictures of that.
I did on my social media, So I went on my social media and I said, look, I got to take a picture of this. This is in my head. I've never done it. So a lot of people go to the Pentagon. They go all these White House. Everybody goes to those sites. No, I'm going to go to the stairs with the Exorcist. That's what was important to me. And let me tell you something. I did a rundown because nobody was there. It was great. I had a little space for myself. Being the fan that I am, I'm thinking of the stunt man when he fell over those steps, right? So I'm saying this stunt man, because it's such, when you really get there, it's steep. So steep, dude. You've been?
No, it's one of them. It's in the bucket list.
You have to do this.
I know.
And feel it for yourself, because I wanted to see because that was a good fall. That was a good fall for that film.
So many steps.
So many steps. So I said, I want to try and just jog down these. And dude, I'm telling you, I was out of breath.
Oh yeah.
Even the stuntman, no matter how much padding it had on, that had to hurt, because that was not forgiving. It was pretty amazing. And then what I didn't realize, Chris, check this out. So the stairway, the film poster. I sound like a geek now. I'm sorry, but I am a geek.
No, man, it's amazing. We're all like that.
This is what's so exciting as a geek. knowing, like, I'm just up and down. Just so you know, I was there for over an hour just doing this back and forth, taping and stuff. So I go up and I'm realizing that my friend told me right next door is the house.
Oh yeah, from the poster.
I never knew in the poster. So when you stand at the top of the stairway and look out a little bit, yes, the pole, the light, the light pole right there, it's over to the left. They must have moved that, or they must have, in all these years. But the house is kind of the same. It's like, holy shit. And so I was there at nighttime. Later on, we went back again. We went back again. I'm pathetic. I have no life.
No, it's not pathetic at all. It's a passion. We're passionate people, totally. like you guys. 40 years, 41 years of Anthrax. It's crazy. It's crazy, exactly, because metal. It's not like blues or rock and roll. It's you can play rock and roll until you're 80s.
Thank
but
God.
Metal, it's pretty intense, to be able. And you, Frank, you're a monster on stage. You're jumping around, you're smiling. Anthrax was always about having fun on stage, as opposed to a lot of metalheads that are really serious and we're metal satanic stuff. And it's a whole lot of fun. And that's come out of passion, for the thing and the fans. And as fans of horror and metal, it's always cool to connect.
I love this. I love connecting. And this is great talking to people like you and just fans in general, music fans. I think it's so close, horror and music. I love that we can connect on this because I think it is very similar. This is a great outlet. So I want to continue as is. I'll keep collecting. I just did, Chris, my first horror fest signing. I've never done them before. So Scott, my guitar player, just did it.
Did you get to sign those?
I signed a couple of those. Yes, I did. Of course. And by the way, my son, just to speak about my son for a second, he actually came up with the character that I wrote in that book. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he came up with the character. Yeah, wow. He's such a horror fan, so I'm very proud of him for doing that. And I have to say that about my son.
And the artist, man, it's great to be able to pass on that passion to the kids. As I was saying in the beginning with my daughter, I'm trying to, to share that passion with her, and
you'll get there.
It's amazing. And just a little word about Andy Bélanger. He's from Montreal. We're connected. He wrote that story of yours, which is pretty gory.
Yeah, pretty gory.
It's a lot of fun. So you did a horror convention, a signing.
Yeah, just last weekend. Scott's agent, Sean, a great dude, Sean Clark, he's a great dude. He asked me if I wanted to do it because we've been talking about doing them. I said, "Is it right? Is it okay? Is it cool? All that stuff." Yeah, just try it. So it was so much fun, dude. It was so much fun to talk to people and just, a lot of Anthrax fans are horror fans.
Exactly.
So it all made sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because, Among the Living, that's my favorite metal album of all times. And there's so many connection with horror. It's so fun. Can you remember? Of course, there's the that connection with the character from Poltergeist 2, Reverend Cain, and Stephen King, The Stand. Can you remember the first time you ever encountered Stephen King's universe? Was it a book, a movie adaptation?
Growing up throughout the years with Scott Ian as my guitar player, Scott writes the lyrics for Anthrax. So he kind of introduced me to it, and it all made sense after that. And then you realize we've been trying to get Stephen King to one of our shows for so long. Last time he tried, it was really close.
In Maine, right?
Yeah, in Maine, because we play there. It's awesome. It's a beautiful place. So, but that's our quest to have Stephen King come to one of our shows. And I follow him. I don't know if you follow him on social media.
Not that much. I know he's really active on Twitter and stuff.
Oh yeah, he's funny, man. He's got a great sense of humor. So that's one day it's gonna happen. It'll happen.
Of course. But can you remember? Was it a book that you first read about him? The Stand.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's the one that came in, and then you just follow suit. Just look at it this way. How lucky are we to have that kind of diversion in life for writers like that to come out and take our minds away from our daily problems? That's the way I'm looking at this stuff, right? Because I guess as you get older, you reflect, and it's like, man, Thank you. That's another thing that's like, it's almost like a gift. Like Stephen King's a gift. You know what I mean? To take people away from their lives.
Exactly. And people like John Carpenter, with
Of course.
you got to collaborate to do a score with him.
So let me show you something real quick, okay?
Yeah.
Can you wait 1 second? I got something hanging up on my wall. I want to take it off to show you. Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
This is cool. Just want to show you that, right?
Oh,
Can you
nice.
see it? Am I holding it up right?
Perfect. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so right there,
it's perfect.
this is a cherished thing a picture that hangs on my wall, signed by John Carpenter after our session that we worked
Ghost
on.
of Mars.
Ghost of Mars, right?
Amazing.
So for me, him writing, great bass, all that stuff, I'm such a huge fan of his. He was a great, fun dude to hang out in the studio with, very collaborative. He just asked us, what do you think? We were watching these great scenes from Ghost of Mars, and you had to get inspired. It was a really, really great process. And I love to do something like that, especially with him, because he gets it. You know, it's
a master. He's done
master.
so many awesome movies in every genre. It's crazy.
He just has it. You know, it's just one of those things. Again, for me, it's the first Halloween will always be. And then you got to think about The Thing. For God's sake, The Thing. He did The Thing.
Man.
I mean, how does that work? You know, where this guy has this talent that could come out and another great impressionable movie. And because every time The Thing's on, I have to watch it too. That's one of those movies, right?
Yeah.
We all have to, we watch, I know the fucking lines verbatim.
Oh,
That
man.
thing wanted to be us, you know, all that stuff. There's so many lines and great catchphrases and great actors everywhere, you know.
It's amazing. I just watched it again, you know, during a snowstorm last, I think, February. It still holds up, you know, 40 years after the fact. It's crazy. And it was a remake, you know.
It was a remake.
It's a good proof that remake can be great sometimes.
Remake can be great because, and to tell you the truth, of course, I like the black and white, the original, which is awesome. But that's a new level with John Carpenter. There was a new level, and the casting was, think about the casting. I mean, God, it was just incredible.
Kurt Russell. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Start with him and go, you know, just everything was right. The location, they did everything right. So
SFX, Rob Bottin.
Are you kidding me, man? So think about it. You were in a snowstorm. You were waiting, and you know what? That kind of nestles you down when you're in a snowstorm watching that movie. You kind of feel like you're into it, right? Yeah. There's just so many great. I'm gonna have to watch this movie tonight.
Of course, of course.
Like one of those things because I haven't seen it in a couple of months, so now it's time.
A couple of months. That's it.
It's pathetic. I have no life. So you know, it's also, Chris. It's just like, and I have to go to this with you because I'm sure you're into it. The movie Jaws.
Oh man,
the movie Jaws. People, I don't know if people see this as a horror, but
it is.
I do. It's a horror movie because this big monster was eating people and terrorizing people.
There's a lot of blood. You know, there's more blood in that movie than in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Of course, the gore. Have you seen the outtakes of that with some of the scenes that they left out with the blood? I mean, oh my God! But let it all come in. The way I look at it, that movie. The one thing I have to say to Chris, for all the filmmakers out there, please never try to redo Jaws because I don't think you can top it. I don't care your CGI, whatever you have, whatever kind of effect. The shark won't look good enough.
Nope.
The blood with the actors, you're not going to replace those three actors ever. Ever. I have to say that. So, look, I'm a diehard Jaws guy.
Man.
You know,
totally.
It's sacred. It's sacred to me. So when these studios, you know, it's Universal again. Yep. But when I hear they're getting ideas about remaking, I said, not that one. Anything else you want, go play with.
Anyways, there's so many shark movies, you know. There is, but Jaws. We had plans for 2020 to go to Martha's Vineyard. We had rented a cabin there, and you know, COVID hit, so it's been postponed till probably 2025 because the movie is going to be 50 years old.
That's the great year. That's going to be crowded in there, dude. You know what? My wife and I, we talked about going there also. Charlie, my drummer, he has done it. He did the whole Jaws. You know, there's a whole Jaws thing there, which is cool. Yeah. But yeah, I plan on doing that. That's on the list. That's on the bucket list for sure. That's a vacation, you know?
You know, we're as fans, we watch, you know, so many documentaries and read books and stuff, but going back to those locations, as you said, when you went to Washington, D.C. to go in those steps, and I want to go to that diner. No, it's not a diner. It's a steakhouse that they opened in the house of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right.
You can have a steak in the house. It's mind-blowing.
It's so crazy. It's funny because I tell you, Universal, they have Universal Studios in LA, California, right?
Yeah. I've been there once, 25 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. So they have the back lot, right?
With the Psycho House.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So one night when we were playing there, we weren't supposed to be, it was closed. We weren't supposed to be there. We got one of those carts, man.
All by yourselves.
It was crazy. We got to drive. This was years ago we did this. We got to go everywhere. We got to go onto the whole front of it and stuff like that. We got to go in places we weren't supposed to be. We got in trouble. They were chasing us. They were chasing us like, I guess, the Universal cops,
The monsters, they were there to get you.
That would be cool. That would be really cool. No, but we got in trouble. We got in a bunch of trouble. You can't be here. Oh, we didn't know. We were diehard fans. We were checking out everything, man. It was the best.
Like that time you went to, I think it was, I don't know if the whole band was there, but I know Scott was at the Madison Square Garden once, and you had trouble there.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of great stories. We get in a lot of trouble. And in my early days with, I remember I went to see Cheap Trick in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, nice.
And I was a young kid, and my friend and I don't even know if I even told this story in my book. I probably didn't. My friend and I, we went backstage. The Garden has this big open garage door.
Okay.
That all the deliveries go in, and the bands eventually go in.
And the trucks and stuff.
My friend and I snuck in there. Dude, it was so quick. We snuck in there. We got in the elevator. All of a sudden, we got up to the elevator. Opens up. This is where the dressing rooms were, man. So this Cheap Trick. This is before I know. Now I'm friends with these guys. It's great. So all their wardrobe stuff was there. All of a sudden we're just walking like we belonged there, right? So a security guy grabs us from Madison Square Garden, and they had us in Madison Square Garden jail, like this office. They put us there, and we were scared. We were young, dude. I was like 13. I was scared out of my wits. It's like, we won't do it again. We won't do it again. So they let us go because we was showing that we didn't mean any harm. So they let us go. We were in MSG jail.
Yeah, wow, it's amazing. So let's go back to horror a little bit because we're almost out of time.
I know we're talking, which is great. I'm loving this, man. This is fun.
So many stories. So horror. What's your top three? The absolute top three, the best horror movies ever made for you?
All right. This is pretty easy because I've mentioned some of them already. Scared wise, Exorcist, top line, still to this day. And then I have to. Can I have four?
Of course.
Okay.
Five.
Give me five, and you're good. Okay. Then we're gonna go. So I have to go. Scare me is Exorcist. Jaws is right up there, right? One, because that's probably my favorite movie of all time, right?
So good.
Yeah. Then we're gonna go with The Thing, man. We're gonna go with The Thing. It's just so done right,
and it comes up all the time. The Thing. Always. People get it right there because as for all the reasons that we mentioned before, and Ennio Morricone's score as well, and the matte paintings as well. Everything is
totally agree. It just is. So where am I? So I got three, right? This is hard.
I know.
And I'm going to go with another Carpenter. No, wait. Let me go with Creature from Black Lagoon, number 4. Okay, Creature, because that's just special to me. And I have to go. Although I have more. God, this is tough. Halloween, the first Halloween. The first Halloween was just. It was not a big budget, but you know what? You kind of lived it, and that character was just so. He did such a good job from the music, letting you know he was there, almost like a Jaws, right? You heard the breathing, and you heard the music when the shark wasn't there, but you heard the breathing. Michael was there. It equates like that. You know what I mean?
And Michael, in the background.
Yeah, you don't know her, and all of a sudden, the white mask just shows up out of the dark. How great was that? and they got you, and they got you with that sound. I can go, Hitchcock again.
Of course. Have you ever had the chance to see Carpenter doing a live show?
No,
not yet.
But you know what? There's dreaming. There's dreaming out there.
Next time you do it, because I was fortunate enough, I think in 2017, he came to Montreal, and I've been working for Ubisoft, the video game company, for quite a while. He's a big gamer, which is crazy at this age.
I love that, man.
And I tried to get him to do a tour of the studio, but he couldn't, with the sound check and all. But I brought him a bunch of stuff, figures, statues, and I got to meet the guy, to shake his hand.
So cool.
And have a bunch of things signed. He was exhausted after the show, but the concerts, the concert itself, I just have to mention, with his godson and son on stage, watching him watch them doing his music was just like we talked before, having our kids being passionate about things in life.
Everything. It means everything. That's so beautiful. See, that's the one thing. I wasn't home when it played, so I'm always on the road. Blah blah blah. Other than COVID, it just happened to do when that was here. I wasn't home, so I will. But believe me, if that happens again, I'll be there.
And I wish it's gonna happen. And for Stephen King on stage with you guys as well, because he's a guitar player as well.
Yeah, he's more than Stephen. If you're watching this right now, anytime, anywhere, you're invited on any Anthrax stage. He knows that because he's the best. He's the best. He's awesome.
Wow. Oh, man. It was such a great time having you in my basement today.
Same here, dude. You're in mine. I'm in yours. It's all good.
It's amazing. And next time you're in Montreal, we're going to meet up, man.
I'd love to meet up. We'll have a beer and we'll talk shop. I love it. And by the way, great shirt, by the way. I know that band.
Exactly. I wasn't fortunate enough to watch a Helmet concert with you in the band.
They're great.
They're great. I've been listening to their records all night, the 90s, and it's Page Hamilton. He's up there.
Awesome. Love him. He's a brother of mine. He's totally, that's another one of those great things. We have a lot in common, you and I, which is awesome. It's cool. Very cool.
Thank you,
Chris,
Frank.
Great job today. Thank you so much. I had a ball. This was one of my favorites. Thank you.
Yeah, man, means a lot to me.
Take care of yourself and be safe out there, okay?
And you too, and see you soon.
Okay, brother. Bye-bye.
Cheers.